Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, August 11th. Hopefully everybody is having a good weekend so far. It has been a weekend full of football, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and today, Sunday. If you live on the East Coast, there was a 1 o'clock game today on Sunday, and that felt like things were normal again. 1 o'clock, Sunday afternoon, nice weather. Football is really in the air. You could taste it. It's getting close. And preseason is officially in full swing as week number 1 is officially in the books. This is episode 24 of Inside the Huddle. So as always, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe. DiMari, football has been on the television over the last couple of days. Last week was kind of the appetizer, teaser, I guess, if you want to call it, with the Hall of Fame game. But this week was the official start of preseason action. And really, last weekend was our final weekend without football, other than the bye week that, of course, will happen in between week 1 and the final preseason game. But who really cares at that point when you're only 1 week to go? You don't mind having a week off before a full 17-game slate. So how you doing? And it's been great to see football back on the TV this weekend.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I kind of hate that we had 49 games yesterday and we get 2 today, so no football for the rest of the night. It kind of could have spread it out. So
yeah, I agree.
Wasn't too bad to have football back. Like I say, it felt good waking up this morning like 10 o'clock, kind of stretch. Look at the time, just like football's almost here.
Yeah.
Do some things around the house and get some games on. And preseason was pretty good. Besides Dallas already in mid-season form, stressing me out, losing a preseason game where you force 4 turnovers, really 5, but it's the Cowboys' way to get another turnover called back on a penalty. Like, seems like we're already in week 12. Other than that, all is good. Football is finally back. Some of the rookies look good. We actually had some very good games that obviously were meaningful for the rookies, but it kind of didn't feel like preseason, like high-scoring games. We've seen some offense. If you watch Dallas today, you've seen some defense, not a lot of offense. So pretty good, for like full slate of preseason football.
Yeah, the Rams basically told Stetson Bennett to go out there, and if you throw 10 picks, you throw 10 picks. We don't care. You're going to play the entire game. So that was an interesting development with the Rams. I don't foresee him taking Stafford's job this year after that performance, but hey, you never know. Yeah, and it's funny. It shows you how hungry we are for football, right? The 1 o'clock game today, you had the starting quarterback room you had your quarterback room of Jarrett Stidham, Bo Nix, and Zach Wilson take the field, and we were ready for it. So good times to be an NFL fan. It's just this time of year, preseason football. It's always, even though it's football. I don't care that it's 4th stringers slinging it in the 4th quarter of games that don't matter. It's still football, and it's still something to look forward to and still something to watch and evaluate. And I think this was a very, very good weekend for the 2024 quarterback draft class. We never really know what these draft classes are going to look like, and we'll get into some other things as well later on in the show, but wanted to start with what the quarterbacks looked like and some of our biggest takeaways from week 1. And like, you don't want to overreact. We're not going to sit here and say that Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels is going to go win Offensive Rookie of the Year and go win MVP, and they're the next great thing, and they're going to the Bears are going to be this year's version of the Texans and go to the divisional round, maybe go to the title game. Like, no, it's one game. It's just a couple possessions, but I thought it was a really, really good weekend. Not only if you're a 2024 draft pick from a quarterback perspective, but it was a really, really good weekend if you're a fan of a team that drafted a quarterback in the 1st round, for the most part, because pretty much every single one of them, except Drake May, showed a lot of positives. Even Michael Penix, who maybe was the most controversial, questionable pick in the entire draft. So we'll start and we'll go in order here of draft pick, and we'll go to Chicago. We'll go to the Bears, who were in Buffalo. Caleb Williams finished the day 4 of 7, 95 yards, passer rating of 101.8, had a 13.6 yards per completion, and looked really good in this game. He also had a rushing attempt for 13 yards as well. Really looked good in the pocket, was able to roll out, extend some plays. You saw a lot of what he did in college work in his first game in the NFL, which I think my biggest criticism of Caleb Williams was wondering all that time that he bought in the pocket in USC, would that be there? Would that be an ability of his in the NFL with a game being so much faster? And I think you've seen that so far in this game. Of course, didn't play in the Hall of Fame game, but I know it's only 4 completions and I know it's only 7 attempts, but going 4 of 7 for 95 yards and having a passer rating of over 100, I don't care if it's preseason or not, or backups or not. That's a really, really impressive start, and a start that you should expect out of the number one overall pick. What was your thoughts on Caleb Williams and what he looked like?
Well, I'm going to say two things here. The first being Caleb Williams will win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Might be a little bit of a stretch, might be a little bit of a reach, but I got this feeling. And two, never thought I would say this, but I cannot wait to watch the Chicago Bears play football this year. I mean, I know we only seen a few drives out of the starters, but they just looked good. Like as a collective unit, they actually looked pretty good. And 4 for 7, again, that's not too crazy, but just seeing him do things that at USC he kind of, I don't want to say struggled with, but necessarily didn't do too well, which is taking care of the football, knowing when to throw the ball away, knowing when to leave the pocket, like not leaving the pocket too early or not sitting in the pocket and taking sacks. So like that was a good thing for not only Bears fans to see, but also people like me who think he's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Just seeing him kind of finally get some live game action, because like you said, we didn't see him in the Hall of Fame game. And unless you're watching Hard Knocks right now, you're not really seeing much of him inside of practice either. Probably a few clips here and there on Twitter. But it was really exciting just to see what he's going to bring. And you can just tell this is like a new energy from the Bears. They are excited. They're hungry. And they're going to win some football games this year. So I was really impressed from what I've seen from the team as a unit, but Caleb Williams in general.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what I loved about Caleb Williams as well was his first pass, his first completion, preseason NFL, whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to count it because it's preseason, whatever. But his first NFL completion was to DJ Moore. And I think that's great to see, right? You want to see your rookie quarterback. You want to see the number one pick specifically get his top receivers involved in the minimal reps that they're going to get. That throw really, really impressed me for a first down. Was across the middle, about 3 Bills in the area, put it in a really great spot. And just, it wasn't even about the throw. It's just finding your number one target, finding one of your elite weapons, guy that just got extending, and getting him the ball. And that's a really good sign to see that chemistry obviously already present. DJ Moore had 2 receptions on the day for 27 yards. And the other throw that I was really impressed with was the one to Cole Kmet on the sideline, where he was rolling out of the pocket, evaded some of the pressure. Maybe, again, rolling out sometimes too soon, leaving the pocket too soon was a little bit of a concern, like you mentioned, in USC. And how would that translate in the NFL if he's not able to always step up in the pocket and make a throw instead of rolling out and then trying to extend the play? But rolled out, had a defender in his face essentially, and threw it on the run. It was a great throw to Cole Kmet. So I thought accuracy-wise, again, decision-making, didn't throw a pick, which is always a positive for these rookies to not turn the ball over in their first start. He looked very comfortable. He was spread the ball around. And I think if you're a Bears fan, you've got to be really, really confident and feel really, really good. He even got the ball, that one play to DeAndre Swift, where he basically checked it down and DeAndre Swift did the rest for 42 yards. So that is also good to see if you're a Bears fan, seeing your new number one running back already making some plays from a receiving perspective. So very good day for the Bears. Not a very good day for the Bills. It's only preseason, but I don't want to throw. I don't feel bad for throwing shade this early, but essentially their receiving core is pretty much already in midseason form. And if you look at the box score, it's not pretty. It's not pretty at all. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 1 target, no catches. And I'll be 100% honest, I didn't see that target. I did not. But I'm not watching Marquez Valdes-Scantling film in preseason. But it wasn't a great day for the Bills offense. It was kind of your typical preseason sloppy football. And they're still trying to obviously get some things ironed out. Josh Allen barely played. He went 2 for 3 with 22 yards. It was mainly Trubisky and Shane Bukele, I think his name is. So any thoughts from a Buffalo perspective? Don't want to overreact, but it was like an ugly preseason offense, which is what you see a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, this might sound crazy, but hear me out. Obviously, they're not playing the starters. And I'm talking both sides of the ball, but it's not like they're going to run one defensive system during the preseason and completely shift to like another system throughout the regular season. Obviously, at the same time, you don't show everything offensively and defensively during the preseason as well. but you're going to get a good handful of a lot of looks and a lot of coverages that you would run during the regular season, obviously with the starters. So to give up 33 points and just 33, 36, whatever the case was, to give up that many points in a preseason game to where your offense also looked pretty bad, I mean, that kind of got to be head scratching because you're just like, is this the system that we're going to run during the season? Starters, no starters, like this is the defense we're going to run, and we just got completely torn apart and shredded. But it's only week one for them of the preseason, talking about Buffalo. So, things could look different come week two. There's going to be a lot of changes, a lot of different things. But week one right now, if I'm a Bills fan, I'm kind of like this is the start of the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because it's you make a good point about that. And the Texans, I believe, which we can get to that too a little later on, Tank Dell and CJ Stroud's connection. The Texans, I believe they won. So both teams that participated in the Hall of Fame game won and looked good. And if I recall last year, the Jets, I remember they lost the Hall of Fame game, but then they blew out Carolina the next week, 27-0. And it's kind of interesting because it's almost like the team, and this is more of a signal, I guess, to Bills fans if you are panicking after one game. It feels like the team that plays the Hall of Fame game, like you said, they've already got a game under their belt. It feels like they're ahead of the team that's their first game because they've already got a full week. Essentially, they've already prepared for 2 games now, so they're a little bit ahead just from last year. Like the Jets blew out Carolina. They played the Hall of Fame game. Bears now blew out Buffalo. They played a Hall of Fame game. Texans won. They played in a Hall of Fame game. So it seems like they're ahead, but something I was reading, the Bears defense went to town. They had 8 sacks, which was just crazy, and 9 tackles for loss. So not necessarily a positive for if you're a Bills backup offensive lineman. You did not help your case of making the roster, that's for sure. So all in all, a very good day for the Bears, a very, very good start to what is a very hyped up season and what is a season that Bears fans should be very, very excited about. And I think you should be really excited after seeing what Caleb Williams did. Because a lot of times you walk away from these outings sometimes from a rookie quarterback perspective and you say, like, let's just say they went out there and they went 2 for 3 for 15 yards. And you're like, oh, it was good. One drive. They didn't do any turnovers. But you try and kind of like make up reasons for belief. They didn't do a whole lot, but you try and say, oh, look, they look good. They didn't make it turn. Like Caleb Williams legitimately made some really, really nice plays. And that's obviously big time positive. Now we'll move on here to the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels, the number 2 overall pick. Again, we'll go in order here. Good day for him. I know he only went 2 for 3, but 45 yards. And one of the nicest plays of the day was beautiful throw, 42 yards downfield to Diami Brown. Early on in the game, was not afraid to air it out, not afraid to let it loose. Perfect coverage, by the way, by Jarek Bernard-Converse, who I was really impressed with from a Jet perspective. And no, I'm not going to bore you and talk about the Jets, pretty much essentially their 4th corner, but really good day for him either way. Perfect coverage, but it's one of those plays where you just had to tip your hat. Tip your hat to Jaden Daniels, tip your hat to Diami Brown. A nice throw, perfect catch. And for a guy that, in his preseason debut, I think that's a really good sign if you're a Bears fan. He wasn't afraid to let it loose. Sometimes these rookies are sometimes afraid. They kind of will rather take the stuff underneath. But no, first game, he was like, let me air it out. Let me take a risk. And he also had a rushing touchdown as well. So I know it was only about 3 yards out, but showing the ability as well to get on the move, get on the run, and make some plays. I think, again, if you're Washington, while you lost, not that it really matters, seeing Jaden Daniels air it out, seeing him connect with Diami Brown, seeing him get to the end zone as a runner was a pretty good deal for them.
Yeah, I was impressed as well. I probably wanted to say as much as Caleb Williams, we did see a lot less. Yeah. But Dallas. I'm just talking about teams in general and the division. I mean, you might have your hands full. I really think Jalen Daniels has tremendous upside and superstar ability. Once he kind of settles in, like, maybe 2-3 years from now, he also could explode this year. We've seen it last year with Stroud. Just, I don't believe in the receivers as much as I probably think I should, because, they are they're not that great of a group of wideouts. Let's just say that. But I just think for Jaden Daniels, yeah, I was impressed. You move the ball down the field. You look great your first offensive drive. And I know Austin Eckler's like 60, but like he looked decent. Everyone really helped out their rookie quarterback, as you were just saying with Chicago not too long ago. So I think that division is going to have their handfuls, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to be a star if he's not hurdling defenders and stuff like he was at LSU. But I did like what I see, so he's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, he's a dual threat guy. He can do it with his legs and do it with his arms, and that's very, very dangerous. The biggest thing that we've talked about as well, he's not an overly big guy. He's relatively kind of skinny, and you just don't want to see him. He needs to protect his body. He can't go full-blown Josh Allen and try and take on defenders one-on-one, which Josh Allen likes to do. But Josh Allen's a little different because he's much bigger. He's a lot more. He could take a lot more of those blows, but Jaden Daniels can't. So that's the biggest thing, is just protecting himself. You could put your body on the line to a certain extent. Yeah, I mean, look, things are looking up in Washington. I think if you can get a good, solid season out of Jaden Daniels, go out there next season and maybe look at another draft pick at receiver. I like that they add, Zach Ertz. I know they're old. He's older, but he's a veteran tight end for them. They've done some good things. You, of course, got Brian Robinson Jr., Eckler as well. So, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and after one preseason game change my stance on the Commanders and say they're going to be a 10-win team. But, is this a team that can maybe go in there if you get what you saw to Jaden Daniels over an entire game, and that 2 of 3 turns into, I don't know, 16 of 21 or something, and 200-something yards and a touchdown or so, and a rushing touchdown, 2 total touchdowns. Like, can they go out there and maybe upset one of these teams on the road? Can they be a team that plays spoiler late in the year? Certainly. I think the biggest thing is if you see a lot out of Jaden Daniels this year, and he's the guy, and you see, and who knows what the future is of Terry McLaurin, but let's say you see progress. Maybe, all right, let's say Jahan Dotson has a good season and he takes kind of a third-year jump. Terry McLaurin has another really good year. Brian Robinson Jr. looks good. You can all of a sudden say, look, like, we've got a legitimate foundation now on offense, and we've also got a new ownership. We've got a new culture. Things start to look up. So, little by little here. Don't want to sound too optimistic after one preseason game, but I mean, do you think who do you think finishes in last? And we'll do our whole division predictions here very soon, but if you had to be put on the spot, is it them or the Giants?
It's going to be the Giants.
Giants.
We've talked a lot about the Giants. I just don't think Malik Neighbors can do it all by himself. And right now, this is going to sound crazy, but I trust Jaden Daniels more than I trust Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I would fall into that same boat as well. Jaden Daniels is a very intriguing and fun prospect. It seemed like the Giants wanted him. The Giants wanted everybody except Daniel Jones in those Hard Knocks, and they're stuck with Daniel Jones. So anyway, quick thing on the Jets side of things I know we wanted to discuss with Braylon Allen. I thought he looked great. I'm really fired up for Braylon Allen. Seeing him in practice, I've gone to 3 Jets practices this year. Seeing him in practice, he's a monster. It's crazy, his size. It's crazy to see his running style as well. For as big as he is, he's got a lot of really impressive downhill second level speed where he can turn it up into a second gear. If you saw him and you just looked at him, you wouldn't think he's really much of a speed guy. But when he gets going and he finds a lane and he gets to the outside, especially to the sidelines, he can really turn it up another notch, which I think is really scary. And of course, he showed his ability to just run through people. And I was really excited to see what he can do because you know how it is during camp. It's sometimes tough to tell how the running backs are because they're not wrapping up. They're just wrapping up. They're not tackling really during training camp. And a lot of times they just whistle and call the play dead once they get touched. So it's really tough to tell how far some of his runs would go. And that's just for any running back, not just Braylon Allen, but especially the running backs that have that downhill style where they can truck guys, run through guys, essentially take 2 guys with them and just keep powering through and turn what might look like a 1-2 yard gain into 4, 5, 6 yards where they can kind of pick up those grimy yards. And I thought it was really impressive for Braylon Allen. He finished the day with 6 carries, 54 yards, 9 yards per carry, 9 yards per carry. So, I mean, led the team, looked great, ran over a Washington defender. I thought all in all, it was a really good day for him.
Yeah, after watching him, of course, I wanted to see him in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. But after watching Braylon Allen, there's two things I know. One, Brees Hall and Aaron Rodgers were probably doing backflips on the sideline, just seeing what they finally got. And two, that's going to be a deadly 1-2 punch of Brees and Braylon Allen. I mean, kind of up until, kind of prepping for our show tonight, what I did not know and what I didn't pay attention to was Brees had 994 yards, rushing yards last year, and he was still kind of coming off that torn ACL.
Yeah.
Which was 60% of the team's total rushing yards. The next highest rusher was Dalvin Cook, who had trouble touching the field, had trouble even holding on to the ball, and Cook only had 214 yards, and that was in 16 games. So not only for Brees last year, like you're working the man to death, but he's coming off an ACL injury, and there's no running back behind him that can do anything. So I know it got to be some fresh breath of air, not only for him, but also for Rodgers that has another back that he can rely on because all his time during Green Bay, majority of his times, he had two backs that he could heavily rely on. One kind of more for the ground and pound and another that you can kind of use as a scat back. But in the case for the Jets, both guys can do both. They are great pass catchers, and they also are great with the ground and pound. So I know you're probably smiling ear to ear watching Braylon Allen yesterday. And I think he's gonna have a great year. I can see over 1,100 yards from here this year because he's just him.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you brought up the receiving ability because it's something that not many people know about, which isn't crazy because he wasn't great at Wisconsin as a receiver. They didn't use him a ton as a receiver. They should have used him more. It's an ability that hasn't been used right, but you've seen it during camp where he's been a great out of the backfield as a receiver. And that's just another element to his game that I think not everybody really knows about, that the Jets are really starting to unlock and are really starting to see, which is really, really big. But yeah, it's just a 1-2 punch. You have your do-it-all back, your bell cow back, and Brees Hall that can do everything. I mean, this is a guy that even coming off a torn ACL, I'm glad you mentioned the numbers. 994 rushing yards coming off torn ACL was 6 yards short of 1,000. Rounded up, we'll say he was at 1,000, right? But either way, 6 yards short of 1,000. Total, though, from a receiving perspective and a rushing perspective, he had the second most yards among all running backs last year, only behind Christian McCaffrey. And that was coming off the torn ACL, behind a league worst offensive line that had 13 different combinations. The Jets scored, I think, 21, 22 touchdowns last year. They almost had the same amount of offensive line combinations as they did touchdowns scored. And on top of that, Brees also had an offensive coordinator. Nathaniel Hackett came out and said he didn't even know that Brees Hall was that good out of the backfield as a pass catcher. In middle of the season, until that Giants game, he was like, I didn't even know he was a threat as a pass catcher. So his offensive coordinator didn't even know how to use him until halfway through the season. All of that around him going wrong, and he still put up those numbers. So it's crazy. And Braylon Allen, it'll be a perfect 1-2 punch. Do it all back and Brees. And then two, Allen is just that third down thumper, 3-4 yards. You need it in a big spot late in a game, bad weather game. He could just put his head down, lower his shoulder, and just drive through and pick up 5-6 yards. I'm really excited to see what they can do. It's crazy. He's 20 years old. So when he was born, Aaron Rodgers was getting drafted, which is just nuts. It's wild. Really, really is wild. But here we are.
Well,
so
I mean, another thing kind of to think of, man, if that's the case, he was drafted at 20. So he played the 23 season, 22 season, and 21 season. So this kid is 17, 18, 19, running through 23, 24-year-olds in college. Well, 24, you're kind of old.
And
but
Big Ten's no joke.
23, 24-year-olds in the Big Ten, where you got some of the best defenses, Iowa, Michigan, you name it.
Yeah.
It's literally insane.
Yeah, you make a great point. He actually left high school early. I forget what year it was he left high school. It might have been junior or what. He was 18, junior, senior, whatever it was. He left high school, I think, a year early. So it might have just been a senior year. to go to Wisconsin. I mean, this they kind of make a joke about, being a man amongst boys. He was like the opposite. Like he was the younger guy, but he still acted like he was. If you see him run, it's like this guy is 25, 26 against a bunch of 20-year-olds, but it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. It's very exciting times, I think, if you're a Jet fan from a running back perspective. As long as they could just stay healthy, that's the biggest thing. Health continues to be the biggest thing with the Jets. It's just they've got all the talent, they just need the health. That's all it is. Anyway, we'll move on now. We'll skip Drake May again. We've got some things we want to discuss with the Patriots here, so we'll tie that all in here in a little bit. We'll go now to Michael Penix, 8th overall pick, Atlanta Falcons. Very questionable pick, a pick that I think both of us did not know why they made it. I don't think many NFL fans, including the Falcons, knew why. Heck, I don't even think Kirk Cousins knew why they made the pick. The Falcons themselves might not even know why they made the draft pick. But here we are. They drafted Michael Penix. And again, we're talking about rookie standing out. I think Penix looked pretty good. 9 of 16, 104 yards, 6.5 yards per completion, passer rating of 76 on the dot. The arm strength or just a smooth arm of his. Yeah, the mechanics. That's the right way to put it. That he had in Washington, that he showed off all of last year, going all the way to the national championship game. The accuracy, I think all that was on display. And which, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I'm happy for Michael Penix, but and it's good to see that but you still question what the timeline is for him. Like, when is he actually going to play? And that's my biggest thing is like, these performances are great, but how many more preseasons is he going to actually play until, what is this, 3 years of Kirk, 2 years of Kirk? Like,
well, here's my question before we kind of get into it more. What was Heineke's stat line after Penix?
4 of 11 for 11 yards.
And that is why Atlanta took Penix. So,
yeah.
I mean, to your point of what we're trying to say, they did sign Kirk Cousins to I don't want to call it lengthy, but to the point where Penix could be sitting for quite some years. But then again, Kirk is up there in age.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It feels a little bit like Love in Green Bay.
Yes.
Where it was like they drafted him and he sat, 3 years, and now he's going to get the big deal and all that stuff. But
and I mean, Kirk is probably just say a torn Achilles away from just calling it quits and just been like, I can't do anything like significant. Shoulder injury, ACL tear, another Achilles where Kirk is kind of just like, all right, well, this is it. Like, I can't do it no more. My body can't recover the same like you used to. Like, I'm not Aaron Rodgers. I'm Kirk Cousins. So for Atlanta's case, I mean, like you said, 4 for 11 for 11 yards. And I watched the Atlanta and Miami game live, and I would have thought Taylor Heinicke was an undrafted rookie out of like South Dakota State, the way he played. And this was the guy that was just a starter in Washington last year that was supposed to take Washington and like win the division in the NFC East. That Taylor Heinicke? Absolutely not. That is why they took Michael Penix, because they know once Kirk's time is done, whether that is in the next few years or whether that's this year halfway through the season, like with another injury, they don't have an answer at quarterback outside of Kirk. Heinicke's not the answer. Mariota definitely wasn't the answer. That's why they had to let him walk. So your best bet for Atlanta right now, and what works out the most, is you do get Kirk healthy for a few years, and then Penix learns from behind Kirk and can step in and be that starting quarterback and can be that franchise quarterback. Or Penix develops and we kind of see like a Jimmy G, Trey Lance kind of thing where they sit for a few years and people see the upside and they're just like, okay, let's trade for him. Maybe he can be the guy. Only thing different with Penix is he is a lot older than, those other guys were. So he, like, I think you said, like, is he going to be 30 by the time he started? But what comes with age also comes wisdom in most cases. So I think if it is a case where he is a little older and he gets traded or he does finally get his chance, one thing he is healthy because he hasn't kind of been getting beat up. So I think Atlanta, we kind of look back and when they drafted him, both of us were kind of like, did Dallas Turner like hang up the phone on y'all or something? Like, what was the reasoning? But I get it. I don't think it was a bad choice. And I think once he gets his chance to actually play, he's going to shine.
Yeah, you make a good point there with the way that is. The age thing, I think, that definitely caught up a lot of people. Like he's 24 years old and he's sitting. A lot of times you're sitting if you're 21, 22, and then you're starting at 24. Obviously, he's a little bit different with his college days where he spent 6 years in college, 4 in Indiana, and then the last 2 in Washington. Crazy all the way back in 2018 is when he started, which is wild. But yeah, you make a really good point. The best thing for Michael Penix to do right now is just go out there and put good film out there. Whether or not his future is with Atlanta, whether or not Atlanta thinks he's the future, who knows? But you make a good point about Taylor Heineke. 4 of 11 for 11 yards is atrocious, flat out terrible. And it's funny when Rodgers got hurt last year. One of the names that I brought up and we were bringing up was like, oh, Taylor Heineke. No, 4 of 11 for 11 yards would not have cut it last season. Well, maybe it would have. I mean, Boyle and Simeon, they were doing the same thing. So maybe it would have. But either way, probably the QB2 spot. And you could trust now, like you said, with Kirk's health, not only if Kirk goes down with a torn Achilles, is he probably done? But if he goes down with a torn Achilles, at least now as a Falcons fan, you have trust and faith that a guy like Michael Penix could take over and play well. I know it's one preseason game, but you saw a lot of good positives. You saw a lot of things that you saw in his college days in Washington, even Indiana there to a certain extent, but mainly last year where he really took off. Those things you saw were very impressive last night whatever they played 2 nights ago. So at least you could feel as like if Kirk goes down, they have insurance now. But I think for Penix, it's just all about, like you mentioned, just playing kind of more for the name on the back, not too much name on the front, proving yourself, whether it's with Atlanta or not, whether Kirk plays out the entirety of his contract or not. Who knows? Maybe Kirk Cousins is never the same after a torn Achilles. Maybe he comes out here this year and is just stinks, flat out stinks. And he's going to be, he'll be then 37 going into or he'll be 37 before next season begins. And then all of a sudden you say, no, we want to give Penix a chance. So it's interesting. You bring up a good point about, the grot below and stuff like that. I guess I'll propose this question. Do you think Penix is the future in Atlanta?
Absolutely. That's why they drafted him.
So you don't think it's going to get into a situation where they move on and something like that?
I mean, the only way I can possibly see that is if Atlanta is, well, there's a lot of different things that have to happen, but unless Atlanta is absolutely desperate for, I don't know what position, because I mean, if Kirk goes down, what other position would you absolutely be desperate into where you need to move on from them? So I guess it's kind of hard to say what I thought I was going to be able to say, but I think he's going to stay there. He's going to be the answer when it's his time, because right now everything they have across the board is very young. So I don't see any reason or any case why they trade Penix for like a few first round picks to go get a Shador Sanders or, somebody new. I'm just throwing out a name, but to go draft another quarterback when you're in need of one, when you have one. So he's going to be in Atlanta for a while.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Very good performance for him. Unfortunately, they didn't win, mainly because of Taylor Heineke. They were riding on a high, and Heineke kind of just done. Nobody will be giving up draft picks for him, that's for sure. You might have to pay teams to get Heineke after that.
Just East Coast Zach Wilson.
Yep. That's a good point. A little bit older, Zach Wilson, East Coast. It's a great point. Old Dominion, the Old Dominion product, Taylor Heineke. Good times. Gotta love it. So that's the Falcons, Michael Penix Jr. Falcons fans should be excited. Maybe this feels a little bit like a love situation. Kirk, let's say plays 2 more years. Penix has a big year. 4 years from now, boom, we're talking about Penix having the largest contract in NFL history. That's the script.
Oh,
that's the script. It's happening. They'll
Interesting.
make the playoffs a first year with Penix in like 3 years from now. They'll get to the divisional round. They'll lose to the 49ers. Exact same script. And he'll get a massive contract. You don't want that same script because then they'll beat the Cowboys. That's not good.
I mean, at this rate, after what I watched today, I mean, the Cowboys are already literally 0-3 because you don't have Dak signed due next year. You don't have CeeDee Lamb signed, and then you just lost to Stetson Bennett on a rollout on 4th and goal, a side body pass after the man threw 4 interceptions. But I'm not even going to rant about it. So I mean, we're 0-4. We still got Jerry Jones, so we're already 0-4 to start the season.
I am curious. What are your thoughts on the comments like Jerry Jones base saying like no urgency?
Let me take a deep breath. This is a family show. I mean, he kind of tried to rewind today and was like, oh, basically what I was trying to say was there's no urgency because you're not out there playing in preseason. So why do we need to sign you right now? Well, maybe that's because you kind of want your star wide receiver to be in training camp with your other star players. Maybe that's why. Maybe because your star quarterback, you want them to continue to build a further connection. Maybe because you have a bunch of unproven guys behind Brandon Cooks who could learn from you. That is why there should be urgency for him to be in training camp. I don't know. The man's an idiot. Like he's literally an idiot. That's all I can say about it. Just he always has a slick remark to say. When Zeke did the holdout, it was the whole Zeke who thing, and they put it on T-shirts. It's all a money scheme. It's all a part of money. But I mean, if I know CeeDee Lamb did say just trade me like if you're not going to pay me. If CeeDee Lamb somehow does not retire as the Dallas Cowboy, I will move to Iowa and be Amish. I will not watch a single down of football ever again in my life. I promise you that.
You'll get season tickets to Iowa and watch their offense.
Absolutely, which is just as bad as the Cowboys offense without CeeDee Lamb. So it will be a little bit of the same.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Are you see? I've entered the stage, and I know we'll get back to the rookie quarterbacks here in a second. But I've obviously same things going on with the Jets with Hassan Reddick, and I've entered the stage now with Hassan Reddick where I'm legitimately worried. I said August 15th was my panic date. August 1st was my worry date. So we're about 10 days over the worrying date. I'm worried if August 15th comes around and Hassan Reddick's still not there, maybe even more so than just the second preseason game against the Panthers, then I'm going to start to panic because it's then like, what kind of football shape are they in? He needs to learn the playbook, needs to have chemistry with his teammates. Mm-hmm. Like then two, at that point, how focused is he actually on football? Like at that point, is he just coming in just to come in so he doesn't have to pay the fines anymore? Does he even care? That type of stuff. So I'm going to full on panic in about 4 days if this doesn't happen. But where are you with the Lamb? Do you think this gets done, or do you think this is something that leaks into the season?
I think it gets done, but I'm already full-blown panic to the point I'm willing to put everything I own on Facebook Marketplace to go raise some money for CeeDee Lamb's extension because I really don't get the waiting games. Like this guy just had the best season in Cowboys franchise history, and you don't want to pay him. And just to put it in more perspective, just saying it out loud. This is basically like, hey, we're going to draft you, and we want you to be the number one receiver. And when you do that, we're going to trade our number one receiver at the time. We're going to trade him away for some movie theater popcorn, all right, because you're playing so good. And that finally happens. And then the other guy, Michael Gallup, he'll like, hey, now we just need you to be our wide receiver one, put Gallup on your back. That guy completely disappears, goes to Vegas, and retires. So now it's like, hey, we've done everything that we need of you and everything we want of you. We literally sent 2 receivers completely just away, but we're not going to pay you. But thanks for your cooperation anyways. Just thanks for breaking a single season record in Cowboys history. We appreciate it. It makes no sense. CeeDee Lamb would have been signed. Honestly, this is going to sound – actually, it doesn't even sound crazy. Whatever game it was, I think it might have been the Lions game whatever game it was when he like officially broke the record and for the best season in Cowboys history, that next day he would have been in the office signing an extension. It's just that simple.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It's so weird. It's like they're not like rewarding him off of what he did last year. It's not like in a contract year or a chance to get an extension. He went out there last season, was hurt for 9 games, played 8 games, and had like 300 yards and barely did anything. This is a guy at 1,700 yards and was first in the NFL in a couple different. I mean, he was statistically in a couple different categories the best receiver in the NFL. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the biggest. That's these owners, man. It's. I mean, they're all. They got all this money, and yet they're afraid to use it on their best talent. We're not talking about some. We're not talking about some. I don't know. Left guard who is average, who's holding out for a new contract. Like, this is your number one receiver. So I agree. I'm with you. But yeah, so you're full on panic. You've said you reach panic.
Yeah, it's beyond panic. I'm literally refreshing Twitter every day to see an extension.
The Jets are like sucking me back in, so everything's great right now. So the Hassan Reddick situation, once they lose a preseason game, I'll be full on panic. Everything's going wrong. If they lose to the Panthers, I'll be like, oh my God.
I mean, the only thing where you didn't have to watch, obviously, CeeDee Lamb probably would not have played today, but kind of just looking at what the offense would be without CeeDee Lamb, you didn't watch Dak Prescott's replacement go 25 for 41, 188 yards, and lose a game where the defense forced 4 turnovers. So you're kind of just like, this is life without CD and Dak. So until you get there, I mean, I think you're all right.
Yeah.
You got Adrian Martinez, and you got Jason Brown, who had a great game, by the way.
UFO MVP. Adrian Martinez. Who knew? He's the answer. I'm convinced Adrian Martinez made it look easier than Zach Wilson did last year. And that's perfect segue because the next quarterback, actually, no, it's not a perfect segue. Because we got to talk about JJ McCarthy first. Why not? We'll go to Denver. Why not? Even though JJ McCarthy was selected ahead of Bo Nix, we're going to go out of order here. We'll go to Denver. Why not? Because we just got done talking about Adrian Martinez is better than Zach Wilson, which I still believe that. But either way, it was a good day. Jared Stidham today looked like the weak link in Denver. I think most people, if you would have went into this game, and this game was, I'll tell you what, this game was highly entertaining for a Broncos Colts preseason game where Anthony Richardson didn't even look all that great. He didn't even look that great. Went 2 of 4 for 25 yards, and it was mainly a Joe Flacco, Sam Ehlinger, Jason Bean, Caden Slovis out of BYU type of game today. And even with that, Colts still put up 30 points. So what that tells you is a couple things. Broncos defense already in midseason form. Already 30 points against Indy. They go up against Indy's backups. They go up against any team starters. That's double, and they'll be hitting 60 in no time. So they're in midseason form. We'll definitely see a 70-point outing from Denver. No doubt about it. But the offense looked good. Bo Nix looked really good. 15 of 21. Statistically, he was probably actually the best because he threw a touchdown. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix did not. But Bo Nix did. So that was good to see. 15 of 21, 125 yards, 6 yards per completion, 1 touchdown, no picks, passer rating of 102.3, and a very successful debut for the Broncos rookie. And look, I don't think people are necessarily doubting Bo Nix. I think we're more so doubting the way the Broncos are doing things right now, the talent on the roster. You have some questions about what really is Sean Payton going to do in Denver? Really, what is he about without Drew Brees? Because last year he didn't show you a whole lot. The way they're running things, the way they handled last year was kind of interesting. You're still kind of questioning it. And the Broncos they're not very talented. So you're just wondering what Bo Nix would look like. He looked really good. And Zach Wilson too. Look, I'll give him his props. All right. 10 of 13, 117 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 103.7 passer rating. I'll tell you what. Don't want to get too off track here, but if you're an AFC fan, you should be celebrating because the fact that the Broncos defense looks like they're in midseason form, and the Colts let Zach Wilson lead 2 scoring drives. I don't care. It's the backups. It's still not a good look for either of these teams. So I think if you're an AFC fan, I mean, watch out. That's all I'm saying. Not watch out. Yeah, I guess. Either way, good day for Bo Nix. Good day for Zach Wilson. Not so good for Jarrett Stidham. I know training camp's important, but I think you walk away from this game in Denver, and I think you look at the quarterback room, and you say Bo Nix, Zach, Stidham. Because Stidham did not look good. 4 of 7, 37 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, passer rating of 32.1. That was embarrassing. So if Zach keeps this up and Bo Nix keeps it up, I think Bo Nix is going to start no matter what. Bo Nix could look average in the preseason. I still think he'd start. But maybe Zach is making a strong case for the number two quarterback gig after what maybe seemed like going in here that he was the third option. Of course, 2 more games to go, but what were your thoughts from those two guys today in Indy?
I was quite surprised, especially from Zach's perspective. I mean, Bo Nix, he played a little better than expected. I mean, obviously he got more playing time than we also thought. So I think he did pretty solid. I think he did enough to just say, hey, like, I'm still the starter. I am still number 1 in this competition. So good for Bo Nix. Zach is what impressed me. I mean, this is the guy who we just continuously just bashed and bashed and bashed. And we even hypothetically sent him to Denver before he even got to Denver. But it's kind of like he's answered the call a little bit. I mean, you said it perfectly last time that we were on here where you were like, maybe if Denver, there's no expectation, there's no pressure whatsoever, and you don't need to step in and try to play as good as Aaron Rodgers or just play good in this market of New York. You kind of just go play free. No one's really watching you because the team's going to be irrelevant. I mean, they're probably going to be one of the worst teams in football. So for Zach's case, it's kind of just like go out there and don't do too much. And I think it's going to sound crazy. I think the Jets wanted him to do too much. When you're playing behind Rodgers, like we need you to be at this expectation. And you got Rodgers kind of in your ear. And this is obviously not sources that I heard, but I'm just saying, like, when you're playing behind a guy like Rodgers, you might also have him in your ear, like, hey, even if he's not saying it, but you kind of get that sense of like, I got to be as good as him. Like, pressure's on me. We got high expectations for the team. I kind of need to follow in his direct footsteps. He doesn't have to do that now. Now you're just trying to stay afloat. If you win the starting battle, you do. If you don't, you're a backup. And when your time comes, your time comes. But I mean, it still is preseason, and you didn't play anybody. You played backups. So until we kind of see him, if we see him in the regular season, it's too early to say. But if he wants a chance to revive his career, it's going to be in Denver.
No, yeah, 100%. And we talked about that going into this season or going into the off season about how him and Denver would be a perfect fit. We called it back in like January because they would be irrelevant. They're not going to be very good. He would have a chance to fight for a starting job. And who knows, maybe if he does play in the regular season, maybe he shows you something. And, we were thinking more so if they didn't draft a quarterback and they played out this year looking more towards maybe looking at like JuJu or somebody next year, looking to get the top crop next year because they weren't in the position this season, of course, 12th overall pick. They weren't good enough to make the playoffs, of course, but they weren't bad enough to be terrible and get a top 5 pick, be a 4-win team. So you were kind of running if they were in the middle ground there. Do they maybe take a weapon, take an offensive lineman, or take a defensive player, something like that, and then throw Zach out there and let him sling it? And it's either he stinks, you win 3 games, you get a top crop for next year, or he's good and maybe you find something. So yeah, it's a good fit. Look, and even that, I'm glad you mentioned just the pressure here in New York. Look, the market here is like none other. And also, I mean, this was a guy last year that was expected to sit. And he got thrown into things 4 snaps into the season. And it wasn't just 4 snaps. It was prime time against a division rival. And he also had to play 5 other primetime games. Well, technically 4 because he didn't play that Browns game, but 5 other primetime games. So he got thrown into things. Don't want to rehash it all, but yeah, I mean, he's got no pressure. He's got no pressure. I mean, he's the backup. He's slinging in preseason games. There's no pressure for him. The team has no expectation. He's got he's got no expectations. I mean, geez, myself included, we've all counted him out. So good for him. I'm happy. Good for him. He's got to do a lot more than just one preseason game. I think ideally he plays the next 2 games, plays very well. And then maybe if he gets some regular season action and plays well, and all of a sudden he starts to build up, 4 or 5 good games in a row. And all of a sudden you say, all right, maybe he's more of a small market guy, but he's still got a lot of work to do. But I think overall, whatever he's done so far, he never looked this good in the preseason with the Jets. He never did. He looked smooth today. He looked calm. Every time with the Jets, it always felt like you were pulling teeth whenever you were watching them. It was so painful, even the short throws. Today, I thought he looked smooth, so it was a good day for him. I mean, statistically, it's basically a career day because the times that he actually surpassed like 100 yards was the times he actually led scoring drives were very far and few, unfortunately. So Zach Wilson, Bo Nix, both look good. Now we'll move on here to the final quarterback before we go to Drake May and the Broncos, or Drake May and the Patriots. And I have one crazy overreaction in New England. And I guess we can each give one overreaction we have from preseason this week. Maybe it could be something we do every week. But we'll start with JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. What a day it was for him. Very, very good day for him. Threw 1 pick, but 2 touchdowns was excellent. 11 of 17, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 11.1 yards per completion, 116.8 passer rating. Through his 2 touchdowns to Tristan Jackson and Trent Sherfield Sr. was airing it out. Beautiful deep ball on his first touchdown. I mean, he looked great. He looked very, very good. Deep ball, and then he fired another 33-yard touchdown. He didn't mess around with airing the ball out, and that's something that I liked. Similar to Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels wasn't afraid to throw deep, wasn't afraid to take risks, wasn't afraid to take chances. McCarthy kind of gives off that vibe of a guy that's going to maybe manage the game and put into the hands of the defense and just do his job, nothing special. But today that wasn't the case. He aired it out. And I think you've got to really like that. JJ McCarthy, what are your thoughts?
Well,
I know you're the big believer.
I've been such a hard critic, such a hater of JJ McCarthy, and that's what I'm about to say. I don't know who this was impersonating. This was not JJ McCarthy out there. I don't know who kind of kidnapped the real JJ and took his place, because I mean he had a helmet on the whole game, so you probably wouldn't know a difference. That wasn't JJ McCarthy. That wasn't JJ McCarthy that I seen at Michigan. That guy played too good. I mean, I'm going to be so honest. After the first interception, I say, here we go. Here's everything I kept telling everybody about. And then I see him just completely flip a switch, and that was a whole different ball player. And I mean, respectfully, all jokes aside, you got to give it to him. He played – he arguably – actually, not even arguably. He played the best out of any rookie quarterback this preseason. And just this one game. And like you said, he's throwing the ball down the field. And, preseason with rookie quarterbacks, a lot of the play calling is like, we're going to let you just kind of, I'm going to call them build up confidence throws. We're going to, the 3 easy routes, easy concepts. But he's throwing the ball down the field. He is airing the ball out as if, regular season game, reading coverages. Let me just go ahead and throw the ball down the field. And if you're a Vikings fan, you got to love that. And they were doing a interview with Justin Jefferson during one of the touchdown passes, and just the energy of Justin Jefferson, you can kind of tell like the team kind of buys into JJ McCarthy and what he's going to bring, or at least what he can bring. It seems like Jefferson's happy. So, I mean, I know as of right now, Sam Darnold has the nod to be the starting QB, but maybe it's just me, and you can give your take on it too. If every preseason game he plays looks like this, he got to be the starter week 1. You might have to actually just start him.
100%. I agree. And especially if he, I don't really think the Vikings this year are really going anywhere in that division with either of these quarterbacks. I mean, look, it may, I mean, I don't know. I just don't love their defense, and Darnold and McCarthy are the two best options. But I will say this: if McCarthy plays with this type of style and lets it loose a little bit and throws it deep, and again, I'm glad you brought up those short routes, those simple route concepts that they usually have these rookies do. And that's what I liked about what Washington and Minnesota here did, because a lot of times it's like, hey, go out there, throw 3 5-yard mesh routes and call it a day. Like that's not gonna do anything. Hey, throw 2 check downs and call it a day. Like that's not gonna help you out. So I'm glad they let him air it out. But yeah, Darnold is the starter right now. But if McCarthy goes out there and lights it up these next 2 days or these next 2 weeks, and not JJ Jefferson, JJ McCarthy and Justin Jefferson's name combined, and Justin Jefferson likes it, how can you not give him the nod? I mean, maybe he's. I mean, could this Vikings team, if McCarthy plays like this, be exciting? Kind of be a little electric. McCarthy play a little, I don't want to say risky type of style, but a fun, exciting type of style of football where, maybe watch out for Minnesota. Again, I don't think they will do a ton this year because their division is loaded. They're in a division that includes Detroit and Green Bay at the top, plus the number 1 overall pick, who also looked good in Chicago, who has a lot more talent than Minnesota does. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, but I think this one caught a lot of NFL fans by surprise. Like Caleb Williams really wasn't surprising. Jaden Daniels wasn't surprising. As much as we make fun of the Broncos, Bo Nix, a lot of experience. I don't think that's too surprising. He's a solid quarterback. I think you have some questions about how high his ceiling is. Like he's good. Can he be great? Can he be elite? You have questions, not calling him an elite, but he looked really good today. JJ McCarthy, though, especially the way he did it. I mean, he was making it look easily. He was dropping dimes left and right. So, I mean, do you think if he plays well the next 2 weeks, let's say next week, goes out there, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns again, and then maybe the week after he's 150, a touchdown and a pick. Let's say he has another great performance and an average performance. Do you think do you think it's still Darnold to start things out, let him sit?
I'm actually going to backtrack because we talked about this last time, but I'm going to tie it in together. If he goes out there and he plays exactly how you said, he will not be the starter, but there's going to be a shorter leash with Darnold than where it kind of stands right now. Just because the point that you made of last time, where that stretch, I mean, you're not throwing him out there week 2 against San Francisco? Like their
stretch
literally
is
no way
brutal.
you do that.
Yeah.
So I think the leash is going to be a lot shorter with Darnold, and is just going to be Darnold's kind of going to know too, like you have a little bit of pressure on you. But McCarthy continues to play how he's looking in the preseason. Darnold struggles, and they go into the bye week and kind of out of it. Yeah, you give him a shot.
Yeah. It's a good point. Like if he has a lot of confidence, you don't want to throw him out there and have it ruined right away. You want to, and that's the difficulty with all these quarterbacks is how much stock do you put into preseason? How much stock do you put into success against backups and stuff like that? Every team's different. Every talent evaluator, every coordinator and all that stuff, coaches are all different. The way they evaluate that stuff. Some say, hey, sit, even if you're playing well. But yeah, I tend to agree as well. I mean, he has a great preseason. It'd be, I don't want to say rude, but it wouldn't be great if you throw him out there. They play the Giants week 1, but after that, San Francisco, Houston, Green Bay, the Jets, bye week, Detroit, Rams, Indy. I mean, that is brutal. So, yeah. It'll be interesting when they throw McCarthy out there, honestly. But hey, he's a winner. That's what Harbaugh said. He's a winner. Are you buying in? Are you buying in yet?
I'm not buying in yet. I mean, I always say that he's Brock Purdy that meditates. But what I can say, if he steps in and basically just does what Brock Purdy does, I mean, that could be a good offense. That could be a fun team to watch. So I'm not gonna buy in quite yet. I'm gonna wait until the regular season to see how he kind of looks then before I fully buy in.
For you, Bullet, yeah, fully buy in and into the Brock Purdy meditation.
Right now, I got it. Like right now, I got him in the cart, but I'm not going to submit my payment. I'm not going to
Yeah,
double click the Apple Pay quite yet. I'm gonna just leave it in the cart for now,
leave it in the
and
cart.
I'm gonna go back in. Should I? Not yet. That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, definitely. You wonder if Devontae Adams was like Squidward, when he looks outside the window and he was like, he sees SpongeBob and Patrick having fun. You wonder if he saw that when he saw Gardner Minshew. Well, Gardner Minshew actually didn't play bad. Their quarterbacks didn't play bad. I mean, Minshew,
Yeah,
he only completed 50% of his passes, but when he did complete them, they were successful. Aiden O'Connell went 7-9. They didn't do too bad, but I still think I'd take McCarthy's efficiency over what Minshew did.
yeah, 100%.
But yeah, who knows? Although when this is like a Linsanity run right now for McCarthy a little bit. So do I officially call it a Linsanity run? I don't know if that's rude. Anyway, we move on now. New England. We talked about essentially some of these teams give these guys 5 mesh routes and say, we'll call it a day. So number one, Jacoby Brissett lit it up. I mean, he went 0 for 3, didn't even complete a pass. So he lit it up. He's week 1 ready. New England's ready right out of the gate. Drake May barely played. He barely played. 2 of 3 for 19 yards. I mean, like what? It didn't make any sense, especially if Brissett's going to start the year. You got to let Drake May get as many reps as possible. I didn't understand at all that game plan from Gerard Mayo and the Patriots coaching staff. I think if you're a Patriots fan, you should be pretty disappointed. Bailey Zappi doesn't need to be getting the chunk of the reps. He does not. Bailey Zappi stinks. You know what Bailey Zappi is. It should be Joe Milton looked really good, but it should have been Joe Milton and Drake May eating up all those reps. Brissett doesn't need to play in the preseason. He doesn't need to. You could play him a drive, which is pretty much what they did, but Drake May should have played so much more than what he did. That and then JuJu Smith-Schuster was also released. So what were your thoughts on Drake May's play time? Because personally, if I was a Patriots fan, I'd be frustrated. I mean, he didn't do it. He didn't play at all. It's different if he was going to start. But if he's going to sit and he's not going to get play time to start the regular season, now is the time to get him the reps. Is in the preseason games. You got to play him a ton. Look at all these guys. McCarthy, 11 of 16. Bo Nix, 15 of 21 or whatever he was. All these guys were throwing 9 to 20 passes. He threw 3 passes for 19 yards and called it a day. That didn't make a ton of sense. So what were your thoughts on that? And, of course, JuJu Smith-Schuster, who really is his usage during camp has been strange. We've heard some rumors. He was a cut candidate. Ends up getting cut. Ends up getting released. And now he hits the open market after a terrible tenure in New England, which only lasted just 11 games last year, where he missed the other 6 due to injury.
To get into Drake May to start it off, I mean, they approached the situation as if he was the day 1 starter, and we just needed you to basically go out there, sweat a little bit, and not play.
Mm-hmm.
You make the great point with Zappi. I think it might have been RG3 on Twitter said the same thing. I can't remember exactly who said it. It was like, why is Zappi taking the reps from the person that you drafted to be your franchise quarterback when you already know what he brings to the table? And just the way they handled the whole situation was kind of ridiculous, if you ask me. If I could have managed how I think that situation should have went, and if you want to play all 4 quarterbacks, Brissett and Zappi should have played the first quarter. However many drives that was, and they split. If that's 4 drives, 2 and 2. And then Drake May, you give him, let's just say, all of the second quarter, and then probably 2 or 3 drives in the third quarter. And then after that, you play Joe Milton for the rest of the game. I think that is the most even balance that they could have done. So that way you get a sense of how everyone looks, but also no one loses their reps. Brissett doesn't need the reps. Zappi doesn't need the reps. Yeah. The other 2 needs the reps. So for them, I mean, for Drake May, you kind of got to be frustrated, and you're just like, what am I here for? You drafted
Yeah.
me to be the franchise guy. I'm not getting reps whatsoever. And it kind of makes me think, is this from the training camp reports that he's being outplayed by Joe Milton? Is that why he's not getting the reps? Or is he quote unquote getting outplayed by Joe Milton because they're not giving him the reps in training camp? Which does make sense because I mean, you want to give him just say the second team reps in training camp, and then you come in and then you pull them like before the game, like, hey, Joe Milton's gonna get most of the reps today. Actually, it makes no sense. But we're not in training camp. We literally have no idea what's going on. But they kind of really mishandled the situation. I hope he does play more in the next preseason game because if not, you're just moving in the direction like you just wasted a draft pick where you could have used it on other talent if you want to rely on Brissett and Zappy to play, most of the time. And I'm talking about during the regular season now. But the team as a whole is they're a mess. I mean, we laugh at Denver all the time. New England's just as bad.
Yeah.
JuJu Smith, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. I just think this TikTok compilation yesterday, actually, of him dancing on NFL logos and people talking about the downfall, which absolutely needs to be studied between Antonio Brown, JuJu, Le'Veon Bell. There has to be like an intensive CTE scanning to just absolutely see whatever went wrong. That needs a 30 for 30 on.
Yeah, you're right. You need it needs a serious study because they all left Pittsburgh and they all basically they got catch the energy.
Yeah, I don't know, but for JuJu, I mean,
we got Le'Veon Bell he was just washed. He just became washed. AB basically said, I'm going to retire in the middle of the game and ran out of the field. He said, I'm going to retire and go score a touchdown one more time, run through the end zone and leave. And then JuJu Smith-Schuster started dancing on logos. I mean, he literally dancing on logos, then got destroyed by Von Bell and like lost everything.
All his powers. His Linsanity run ended with that hit. And I mean, I don't know, because even just look, Antonio Brown, you literally played for the Raiders for 5 minutes and like absolutely prayed to get released.
Let him use his helmet.
Yes, over the helmet. You played 5 minutes with the Raiders. Then you became I don't even know. Then Le'Veon Bell's a rapper. JuJu Smith, I don't know. But for JuJu, I mean, this
Patriots
is a
53-man roster.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look. You have a bunch of unproven receivers. I mean, KJ Osborne is probably the most proven in that group. Maybe. I don't know. Just Kendrick Bourne. That's just a terrible look. And I know you mentioned it last time where he was like 8th on the depth chart. So for you to be a vet and you can't even play well enough to be, considered on the depth chart as somebody that could be a starter going into the season. I mean, it might be time to learn Canadian, bud, because it might be over for JuJu.
Get ready to learn CFL, buddy.
Yeah,
or
it might be over.
Get ready to learn UFL. Get ready to learn Chinese, buddy. Have you ever seen that Shaq meme where it's like Wong Dong Tigers, ni hao, ni hao?
JuJu Smith right now.
That is definitely happening with JuJu Smith. So interesting times there in New England with the way they handled preseason week number 1. I will say this: overreaction time. Joe Milton's the answer in New England.
I don't disagree with that. I
very
really
overreaction, but I'm going to say it. He's the answer in New England.
I loved what I seen from Joe Milton. Absolutely.
Yeah. He looked great. He looked really good. And he was a guy that I liked coming out of college in the middle rounds. And I liked actually the way that New England handled it. They essentially gave themselves 2 chances at a quarterback. It's basically if Drake May doesn't pan out, then we, try Joe Milton. They essentially gave themselves, all right, we're going to take 2 quarterbacks And if one doesn't work out, we'll try the other. If the other doesn't work out, then that's it. So it's definitely interesting to see how that Drake May barely played. Joe Milton went out there and diced up Carolina, which was, I think, positive to see if you're New England. So, yeah, interesting, very interesting weekend. Like Drake May barely plays. Joe Milton balls out. JuJu Smith-Schuster gets released. They won, so that's a positive. But, I mean, they got to enjoy these wins because they might only get about 2-3 more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but if you add on the preseason, what they win, I mean, they might.
They might only win 2-3 more, including the preseason.
Exactly, because I mean, unless Joe Milton's out there playing every game.
Yeah.
Other than that,
crazy turn of events. Joe Milton named the starter week 1, goes into Cincinnati, beats Joe Burrow and the Bengals, throws for 4 touchdowns, 350 yards.
I would love to see it just so a little bit of the Cincinnati hype can slow down, but Patriots fans would be insufferable if Joe Milton steps in and just is the answer.
I'm curious. This won't happen, but what would have to happen for Jacoby Brissett to not start? It wouldn't nothing. He went 0 for 3 this week. Let's say next week he goes out there and goes 0 for 6. And then the week after that, he goes like 1 for 6. So he finishes his preseason like 1 of 15 for like 9 yards. What if that happens?
Injury. That's the only way Brissett's not starting.
Yeah.
It's got to be injury.
Yeah.
Or
we'll see Joe Milton at some point this season.
I mean, Zappy doesn't even belong to be there.
That probably won't happen. A lot would have to go wrong.
Yeah, I'm just hear me out. Zappy doesn't even belong to be there, but doesn't even deserve to be there.
No.
So Brissett gets hurt or just doesn't look that good. They bench him or just stays enough for the season. Drake May comes in, doesn't look that good for whatever reason, and they're just like, we need a change. Joe Milton time. Week 12, Joe Milton time.
Yeah. Week 12, who do they play? Miami. That was a perfect week. Outplays Tua.
And I mean, I've seen a receiver literally get called up from the practice squad to start a game as an NFL quarterback. There's nothing that is too outrageous to happen in the NFL.
Outplays Tua. Yeah. Denver Broncos.
But hot take. The AFC South has 4 teams competing for a playoff spot.
Titans. Throwing them into the ring.
They impressed me. They really did impress me. I mean, I think if
Will
D-Hop
Levis
was
the real deal. Yeah, D-Hop getting hurt's tough.
I wouldn't even say the real deal. It's just the way the offense looked. Tony Pollard actually looked good and explosive again. So now you got the 1-2 punch of Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard. The receivers, I feel, eventually will help Levis look a lot better, a lot more comfortable. We obviously didn't see much, but somebody's gonna have to step up with D-Hop being gone. So if they can just stay 500, or let's just say a game or two above 500 until D-Hop gets back. I don't think it was season ending, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Just until D-Hop gets back. I mean, we might be talking, and I'm about to drop the mic, but it's looking like Jacksonville might finish last in the division, but all 4 have a chance to be competing for a playoff spot.
Yeah, the AFC. Yeah, I agree. AFC South is interesting. I don't know if I'm quite there yet with Tennessee, although I could see them finishing ahead of Jacksonville. But you make a good point. I mean, look, they play Chicago week 1. As much as we've talked a lot about Chicago, is it crazy to say if Tennessee beats them? And they play the Jets, so they split those 2 games. Then they get maybe D-Hop back for Green Bay, Miami. They've got an early bye week. Their end of their schedule, you get to the middle of their schedule, they got a lot of winnable games. They play the Patriots, they play the Chargers, they play Washington. They have about 4 weeks there where they've got a lot of winnable games.
I mean, they'll split. I think they split Jacksonville. I think they split the Colts. So that's already 6 wins right there. And really, 8 and 9 can get you to the dance. kind of just depending on how the rest of the AFC shapes up. But it will be hard for all 4 or even 3 teams to get in with the AFC North, the way that looks, even the AFC East. But again, we've seen anything is possible in this league. So nothing is too outrageous right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, last year was 10. 8 or 9 will give you a chance. It'll give you a fighting chance over the last 2 weeks. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, Ridley had the one big catch. I think they could be a 7 to 9 win team. I don't know if they're much better than that, but Levis is impressing me a lot more than I expected. And Tony Pollard, like you said, kind of one game, but he looked fresh in a way, if that makes sense. D-Hop's a big blow, but you'd rather him get knocked out now than if they're making a playoff push in December. But so it's interesting. But anyway, talked about JuJu, talked about most of the quarterbacks. One thing I do want to discuss quickly here, and we'll kind of end it too with IU, although that's pretty much the same situation as it's been. But CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans went into Pittsburgh, beat the Steelers. Good day for Stroud. Went in there, got some work in, left 2 of 4, 41 yards, a touchdown, passer rating of 126. So about a normal performance you would see from CJ Stroud. Walk in there, throw 4 passes, throw one of them for a touchdown, 41 yards. One of them tanked out, which is great to see. Tanked out with a touchdown for 34 yards. One catch, 34 yards, and then they hit the shower. So good for him. Good for tanked out. Good for CJ Stroud. I think if you're a Houston Texans fan, you've got to be excited about what you saw this week, what you saw on Friday night. You saw your receiver look healthy. You saw your quarterback look like he hasn't missed a step. And, oh, yeah, you got some more Tim Boyle as well, which is never a bad thing. At least in the preseason. It's a bad thing in the regular season.
Just even before, I had a coworker of mine. I can't believe he actually said this to me to my face. That said, Tank Dell is all he really does. Him and CJ Stroud is throw screens, and that's how they score their touchdowns. Because that's not the Tank Dell that I had on my fantasy team. Because every time I checked, it was bombs. So that's 1. 2, if anyone wanted to know, Tank Dell tore his ACL and also got shot before Ben Simmons has returned to the court to play basketball. That is the second option, just to throw in there. But, I mean, they look good. That offense is going to be very fun, very exciting to watch. We obviously didn't get Stephon Diggs, who didn't even suit up. Nico Collins is going to have another big year. Dalton Schultz is going to have a great year. I mean, the list goes on of weapons that they have. So, if you're a fantasy player, I mean, it's kind of, in a way, pick your poison, but I say that in a good way because you can pick any one of those Houston Texans, and I guarantee you they're going to have a great season. So, Houston, I mean, we'll probably see them playing in February. I know I've been pretty high on them. They're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. I've said it for a while now. Very high on them, similar to you. I think they'll be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I've said that for a while. I just think they're that loaded. To me, I know there's always that second year questions about regressing. And after year 1, is CJ Stroud really the real deal? He was so good last season. Can he do what he did last year again, where he was essentially had one of the best rookie quarterback seasons we've ever seen? Like, can he do it again? And I legitimately think he does because the team around him is getting better. Like, I don't see how they're going to get worse. They got better in the offseason. I think their coach is the real deal. I think they buy into him. And also, too, let's remind people, like, not only are they getting better, but they also weren't full strength last year. They lost Tank Dell midway through the season. Like we mentioned, that we've been talking about. So it's not like they lost the wild card. Like, if they had Tank Dell, you can make the case that they go even further. Not lost the wild card, lost the divisional round. If they had Tank Dell, you can make the case they go even further. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me if they had Stephon Diggs last year, they're getting to the title game. They're beating the Ravens.
100%.
100%. So I've said it. I think they're going to win the AFC. I think they'll, from a 1 seed standpoint, not saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but from a one, I think they'll be the 1 seed. I've always said that. And I know it's tough to count out the Chiefs, but talent wise, Texans, I think, are the most talented roster in football from a one of the most talented rosters in football, just from an offensive standpoint. They have 3 legit weapons. Dalton Schultz, even Cade Stover showed you some good things in this game as well, as depth at tight end, which I think gives you a lot of confidence. And oh yeah, we haven't talked about it. They got Joe Mixon for nothing. For nothing. They didn't have a run game last year. Now they have a run game. So there's actually even less stress now on the shoulders of CJ Stroud. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to regress. Well, he actually has less pressure now because he's got better weapons. So he doesn't necessarily have to do all the heavy lifting. A lot of his weapons will help him out. Will kind of do it for him. He gets the ball in their hands. They'll make the plays with their legs. And then Joe Mixon's a huge threat from a rushing perspective. The Texans had no run game last year. Their leading rusher was Devin Singletary at 898 yards. Joe Mixon finished 8th in the NFL last year in rushing yards.
On a down year.
Yeah, on a down, exactly, on a down year. This is a guy that can easily go off for 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards. So I don't want to spoil all my Texans, don't want to spoil all my predictions, but I like the Texans. And seeing Tank Dell healthy out there, it should make you really happy, especially if you're a fantasy football owner, because when he went down, dude, I was going all the way. I was going all the way. He went down, season was over, missed the playoffs. And yes, I missed the playoffs in fantasy football. I know that is incredibly embarrassing. Incredibly embarrassing to miss the playoffs.
It's all right. And I know I told you this before, but whenever you feel bad about your previous fantasy football team, I had an entire draft board. And during the draft, with the 6th pick, I looked at Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, and I drafted Austin Eckler. I would have went all the way. Tank Dell, when I found out he tore his ACL, I literally fell to my knees in Walmart. I was so sick. I didn't even know what to do. So, just it happens.
I totally agree. I feel your pain with the Eckler stuff. I feel your pain. Yeah, that's me every year. I make all these big draft boards, and then the draft comes around, and I completely lose it. I'm like, I look at my board, I see this guy and that guy, and that never pans out. I was so devastated when Tank Dell going out. He was carrying my team. I was winning every week. He went down, and I think I finished the season. I think I finished like 1-4 or something to end the year. My team fell apart. He was carrying my team. He put my team on his back. And I'm sure he knew that while he was playing. He was like, man, I'm devastated.
I'm really getting sick just speaking about it. I mean, my weapons would have been McCaffrey, David Montgomery, TJ Hawkinson, Tank Dell, Amon-Ra. Like, that was literally my team, but I took Austin Eckler instead. There was nobody beating me if I had Christian McCaffrey on it, and Brock Purdy. I even picked up Brock Purdy, and that was my quarterback.
I had a lot of quarterback problems last year. That was what's great, though, because I had Stroud and Tank Dell. Guess who was my quarterback? I don't know if I ever told you. Quarterback who I drafted.
I think we had the same quarterback. Was it Deshaun Watson?
No, I took Rodgers.
I think I did too as a backup. I took him as a backup.
He was my starter. 4 snaps in, of course, not only did the Jet season die, but my fantasy season partially died. Rodgers goes down, and the next week I pick up Brock Purdy. He was like the safest pick, easiest pick. It was like, all right, pick him up. And then I picked up Anthony Richardson for a week. He got hurt. He only got 5 points. I left Purdy on my bench. He got like 30. I'm like, oh, this is great. I lose. And then after that, I'm like, Stroud was available. Stroud was lighting it up. I picked up Stroud, told Purdy, had a tough conversation one-on-one with Brock Purdy. And I told him, hey man, you're going to ride the pine. I don't want game managers on my team. And I sat him on the bench. I put CJ Stroud in there, picked up Tank Dell, and my season was cruising, not smoothing. going smoothly. And then everything went south. And Brock Purdy was still on my bench. You know what's funny? Daniel Jones was rostered in my league last year. He was rostered. I mean, and I didn't even make the playoffs in the league. I don't know what's more embarrassing. The guy that had Daniel Jones. I mean, why in the world is Daniel Jones on your fantasy football team? What are we doing here? Daniel Jones, are you kidding me?
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
Times,
But I mean,
desperate times in the draft. The guy drafted him. What are we drafting Daniel Jones for? He's lucky he even got drafted into the NFL. We're drafting him in fantasy football. Daniel Jones. Good Lord. Ugh.
Oh, that's something.
You know what I mean? Look, my overall record in this league that I've been in, 51. I played 8 seasons of fantasy football. My first season was back in 2016. I finished 2-11 that year. But that was my first year. Now, I've never won. I made the playoffs in 3 of my 8 years. So I missed the playoffs for 5 years. I haven't made the playoffs in 3 seasons. But no. Yeah, I haven't made the playoffs since 2020. Now, goodness. I'm 50 in this league. I'm 50. Need to
rebuild.
Yeah, I might need to rebuild. I may need to fire myself. I am 51, 55, and 1 in this entire league, all-time record in this league. So I'm under 500 in 107 matchups total, which is bad, really bad. 481 winning percentage. That's brutal for fantasy football. Good God. Oh, it was funny. I actually got kicked out of a league because I finished in last. So I had to run the milk mile, and I never ran the milk mile. So I got kicked out of the league. I got kicked out of the league for sucking.
It might be time to rebuild. I mean, this you're on the hot seat. Like this year, if you
I've been on. Dude, I would have been fired if I actually was a professional sports team. I might have to resign. I would actually get fans coming to my house to go like rob my house. If I went 8 seasons and made the playoffs in 3 years and haven't made the playoffs since 2020.
Whose head coaching tenure was worse? Yours with your fantasy football team or Urban Meyer in Jacksonville?
Oh God. Well, year 1 we were very similar. 2016, me and 2020 Urban Meyer were about this, or 2021 Urban Meyer, about the same thing. What the Jaguars went 2-15, 2-14, 2-15.
Pretty bad. Just
I went 2-11.
Yeah, man.
Jason Witten, baby. Jason Witten and Alex Smith. That was the core. That was the core of the team.
Jason Witten and Alex Smith. I forgot Alex Smith even played football. That was a long time ago.
Do you use ESPN?
I do.
Yeah. I'm just hoping, man. I just want to get into the Popeyes playoffs. That's all. That's all I ever want.
Into the Popeyes playoffs.
Just get me into the dance and I'm ready to roll.
After last year, I kind of thought about just resigning as a whole because.
Well, I had to make a name change. I'm the United States Postal Service now because I don't deliver on Sundays. I had to make a name change.
That is clever, but I'm just saying. I mean, basically, what I did is I watched Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson go absolutely insane on Saturday night in Death Valley, and I said, you know what, Mitch Trubisky. That was literally what I did with the Christian McCaffrey thing. It's just there were so many options because. Before my whole team even changed, can you imagine my running back room would have been Christian McCaffrey and Breece Hall? Because that's who I had. So when Rodgers went down, my season also kind of went down because I had Breece and I had Garrett Wilson before I had to make some trades. McCaffrey and Breece Hall, I would have went undefeated. But instead, I was literally Notre Dame, and I was a 1 seed that lost in the first round of the playoffs. So might be time for GM change, especially after that bad call.
Yeah. I've had some really, really bad ones. Terrible ones at that. Really bad. One of the I don't know what my worst one was. I don't know. It's tough to say. Too many to count. Anyway, any closing thoughts? Brandon Ayuk.
Nothing much. Same old, same old. Will he get extended? Will he not? Kind of tired of hearing about him. Hopefully he gets a deal or gets traded. Simple as that.
Somehow he will probably end up on my fantasy team and he won't be playing.
Hold out this year.
Hold out. I'm gonna hold out. I'm gonna hold out from fantasy football.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. Anyway, we will see you all next week with preseason week 2 in full swing. Getting closer and closer. So stay tuned. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.